Until I'm undercover, you're running around, making sounds until you run for cover. You are perfect, make no mistake. You fight every word until you run. I don't think I'll have a word to say. You make me dizzy, dizzy. Around, making no sound until I'm undercover. You're running around, making no sounds until you run for cover. You are perfect, make no mistake. You fight every word until you run. I don't think I'll have a word to say. You make me dizzy, dizzy. Never around, not making no sound until I'm undercover. You're running around, making sounds until you run for cover. You are perfect, make no mistake. You fight every word until you run. I don't think I'll have a word to say. You make me dizzy, dizzy. You sound until I'm undercover. You're running around, making sounds until you run for cover.
One, two. Hey, hey, hey.
the song until I'm undercover. You're running around, making sounds until you run for cover. You are perfect, make no mistake. You fight every word until you run. I don't think I'll have a word to say. You make me dizzy, dizzy. Making no sound until I'm undercover. You're running around, making sounds until you run for cover. You are perfect, make no mistake. You fight every word until you run. I don't think I'll have a word to say. You make me dizzy, dizzy.
Oh, God. Yes, that's on. Hi, good morning, everyone. I just want to let you know we're going to start our closing session here in about 5 minutes. So if you want more of that delicious buffet, grab coffee, grab water, and we are going to start our last day together. Thank you so much.
Fight every word until you run. I don't think I'll have a word to say. You make me dizzy, dizzy. You song until I'm undercover. You're running around, making sounds until you run for cover.
Good morning. Good morning and welcome to our closing session of this wonderful boot camp and seminar. Thanking all of you again for spending these days with us. And I think that this particular panel, bringing it all together and the way forward, is the perfect capstone to this event because, we think about what are we going to take away from this event? We have spent 4 days together. We've learned a lot. We've met each other. We've created new friendships. But are we going to go away and not really have kind of a long tail impact from this event for how you're planning to move forward? So my hope is that this last session is going to begin to lay the groundwork for that future that we can take from this event into our next steps. So this event, this particular session, is going to feature a number of persons. We'll first hear from Mr. Cordell Green, the Executive Director, Broadcasting Commission Jamaica, also Chairman of the Digital Switchover Technical Committee. Then we'll hear some remarks from Dr. Maria Myers-Hamilton, Managing Director, Spectrum Management Authority. And then I'd like to invite 5 panelists to the stage. We will have Mr. Trevor Libert from the Direct Digital Switchover Project Team, Mr. Aldo Cagnini from AGC Systems and Technical Advisor to Broadcasting Commission Jamaica. We will also have Mr. Chris Daring, the Technical Consultant to CVM TV and Co-CEO of Ready TV, Mr. David Casanova of Love TV and Ready TV Co-CEO, Dr. Claire Grant, General Manager of Television Jamaica. So you can imagine we're going to have a very lively conversation. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Mr. Cordell Green to the stage.
Thank you very much, Madeline. Good morning, all. Just a few observations. First of all, I believe based on everything we have heard since Monday, it is clear to me that a crucial part of the way forward has to be ongoing training and engagement. That is abundantly clear. There are so many moving parts, so many dynamics at work, which makes this both exciting and challenging. And the worst enemy of what we are embarked on here, which is transformational and revolutionary, the worst enemy would be information asymmetry. So we have to be constantly in touch with retailers and innovators, broadcasters, consumers, and I hope, Madeline, both myself and Maria have emphasized this, and I know Trevor has also repeated this, that we look forward to continued partnership with the ATSC in this process. This is certainly not a one-off. I know that you can't always come down to Jamaica, but save for Amy. But we also have great opportunities now anyway in the COVID or post-COVID environment to engage, not always in this context. So I really want to underscore the ongoing training and engagement. I want to clarify a point about switch off, because I think there have been some statements about switch off, which, if not clarified, could appear to be in conflict or mutually exclusive. And these points are not in conflict, they all relate. The first is that when the decision was taken about 2 years ago or so about switch off, that decision indicated 2023 as the switch off date. That's a decision of the Cabinet of Jamaica. So when we talk about analog switch off being 2023, we are speaking about a policy decision that has been taken. That does not imply inflexibility. When the decision was taken about switch off date, at the point at which Murray and I were in the trenches trying to write a report and get it up to cabinet, there was no certainty about anything called a COVID-19 pandemic. Mr. Putin didn't decide at the time and announced he was going to try to annex Ukraine. And most certainly there was no talk of recession or stagflation. So we have to, and supply chain disruption. So we have to take those matters into consideration. But you really need to indicate a date. But we don't live in a bubble. We know the United States, I think they did their switch off in 2009 after announcing 3 switch off dates. That's not a good example. we're not trying to do that. But we're not inflexible. And we are taking evidence-based decisions. There's no decision that is going to be taken on these matters that will not involve close consultation and true partnership with the most critical people in this process, who are the broadcasters as well as the suppliers, and on top of them all, the actual consumer. Then the other point, which is not in conflict or mutually exclusive to those other points, is that the shortest simulcast makes sense. It makes sense. We have to streamline and calibrate carefully, taking account again of supply chain, demand, broadcast readiness, consumer readiness, and price. But we're on the way. And we're on the way carefully planning the direction of travel. Those are my comments. I look forward to what we're going to discuss. Trevor Liebert is our project manager who has been in discussion with a number of stakeholders who will indicate to you our plan, which itself is not inflexible. It has to have risk mitigation built in and constant consultation and tweaking. And of course, we have Aldo Kunini, who has also been talking to broadcasters and other stakeholders and getting a clearer sense of how we are to calibrate and strategize around some of the technical challenges and opportunities. So I look forward to this session. Thank you for the time and for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Cordell. And now I'd like to call to the stage Dr. Maria Myers-Hamilton, who has the most style in anyone I've ever seen. Thank you, Dr. Myers-Hamilton.
So good morning, everyone. It's what, day 4? Am I right? It's day 4? I think we still have some person sleeping in the room. So we're going to wake you up. Like I like to say to my team, and I've said it before, possibly to this team in front of me here, I grew up in ICT. And with every new technology, there is always going to be challenges. But it's how you treat with the challenges moving forward and collaborate with them. Because you can't move a mountain or you can't move or climb a mountain by yourself at times. And my team knows this when we hiked to the Blue Mountain Peak recently. It takes effort, it takes collaboration, it takes belief, faith, and even love. And not Love FM over there, right? Or Love TV. Although I'm wearing Love today, right? But I want to say that what we have done for you, Cordell, Madeline, and team, they have believed in us because with one conversation, they brought a team to show you what can be. And again, we're at the cutting edge, which is amazing. We are at the cutting edge, and we are embarking on being one of the first countries to create history. And when I talk about history, I'm not talking about the average Kingstonian like myself, who's accustomed to running water, who's accustomed to turning on the TV and getting news, and we're good. And everything is at our fingertips. We're talking about Moko. I don't know if anybody know Moko in here, raise hands. We're talking about Wait a Bit. Anybody know about Wait a Bit? All right, there's a place called Wait a Bit, right? There are places, there's called, I know Chris knows Mullet Hall, and I thank you, Chris, for affording me that opportunity to see that beautiful, scenic community of persons living beside the foothills of the Blue Mountains who did not know what internet was. The child, my children from day one, in my house, there are devices that connect to the internet, but there are communities that are unconnected. Why is this so important? Connectivity. Connectivity takes you out of darkness. It brings in the light because it gives you access to information. Access to information is so important. It is a game changer. The foundation that we're laying today have impacts or implications for generations to come. Crime, once you bring a man into a room to learn, to get a skill, to become legit, you have changed a generation. So it's not just about broadcasting, it's about creating and developing our nation. Economic growth and development. Those are the words on your lips, and you are charged with this. All of you in this room, including myself, are committed to making a better world and a better life for the people around us. And in closing, I love diamonds. Diamonds are a girl's best friend, isn't it? And I know I have some persons that believe in that. But a diamond comes from a clump of coal under severe pressure. And that's what we are asking all of you to remember. There is going to be pressure, there is going to be challenges, but we work together, we will be that diamond. And I thank you because I know with all of you in the room, you're committed to this. We are going to be diamonds. And again, thank you so much, Madeline, and all the partners that came here today that believed in us. You know, this is just an amazing moment for all of us here. And we thank you. And thank you for the broadcasters because now we are global. Thanks for the live streaming. I want to just say, you know, congratulations to Melo down there who is doing the live streaming. Thanks again, everyone.
Thank you very much, both of you, for those very inspiring words and setting the stage for this panel. I'd like to now call to the stage our panelists. Since I've already done the proper introductions, I'll just perhaps go on first name basis. May I ask David, Chris, Claire, Aldo, and Trevor to please come to the stage. sit anywhere. Yes, no particular order. Well, this is so wonderful. We have our project team represented. We have Love TV, CVM TV, and Television Jamaica represented to discuss the way forward. So to kick off the conversation, what I'd like to do is start with Trevor to talk a little bit about how, as a project manager, he sees the project unfolding. And then we'll ask Aldo to talk a little bit more about how he's going to be helping the broadcasters and working together with the Broadcasting Commission Jamaica to make all this happen. And then I'd love to turn the microphone over to each of the broadcasters to speak about their impressions of these 4 days and how they envision taking it forward from here. So you all are welcome to come to the podium for your sort of monologue, if you will, and then we'll start having kind of a conversation, a discussion about what the plans are. Okay? Okay, Yaman, they said. Trevor.
Thank you, Madeline.
Do you want to?
Oh, sorry. 1 second, please.
On switch right there. Oh, yes.
Okay, let's start all over again. Thank you, Madeline. Good morning, colleagues. It is indeed a pleasure to be in front of great minds, enthusiastic undertakings. I could never have imagined in my wildest dreams that this opportunity would be before me, and I would like to thank you for that to kick off my presentation. Now, we are embarking on a very, very, very challenging journey. I'll tell you that up front. I joined the project about 2 months ago, and since then, I've been doing some work. But let's look into my agenda for this presentation, because the agenda speaks to, it's a very short agenda, only 3 topics. But nonetheless, you know, they say good things come in small packages. This, well, diamonds do. But this is a particularly significant example of that, because this endeavor, although I would highlight it in a very brief presentation, is a very, very impacting activity and program that we're undertaking. And it required significant thought from my part, from a project perspective, in looking at how we will approach this. First of all, we looked at a document that was prepared by Peter Wallop of the ITU, in which back in 2015, yes, roughly 27 years ago, he produced a sort of what he is called, described as a roadmap, but it identifies certain, what he called phases, we call streams. And we are using it as a guide, because you would anticipate that after 7 years, there would have been impactful changes, decisions, etc. So at a high level, and yes, it looks confusing, but at a high level, this is what we're looking at. And you can see from the icon, when I saw what was ahead of me, I went crazy, literally. Because the DSO process, and yes, we know it has already started, right? And the broadcasters will speak to that. But the DSO process, as described by the roadmap, involves 5 what we call streams, right? There's a policy stream, there's a ASO planning stream, a licensing policy and regulation stream, as well as a network stream and a license administration stream. Now, you can tell from the diagram, the horizontal at the bottom is a timeline, a proposed timeline. No dates, but showing you the phases or the timings that needs to take place. And then on the vertical side, we're looking at the phases, right? Now, you'll notice that the DSO process at the top starts with phases 1, 3, 2, and to a small extent, the implementation. This is as a planned exercise. The reality is that this is not what is happening because the actual implementation side is already taking place. And then that will be followed by a simulcast period in which both digital and analog will be transmitted. And then there's a decision, as Cordell indicated, based on evidence will be taken for the switch off. So in the last couple of months, right, and when it started in early May, we have been looking at all of these different activities. And as I said, bearing in mind the information that was provided in the roadmap. Now, when you look at the policy side of it, this is looking at the objective of this is to look at the political impact. And of course, that had started with the cabinet decision that was taken back in May 18, 2020. But there are more things to come with regards to what the document calls policy, and I put it in quotes there, because in reality, it's a sort of, it's not strict policy, it's more legislative-based, regulatory, and also institutional recommendations. It deals with justification for the policy, it deals with license and technical framework. So it's not a strict policy per se, but it sets a framework for the project. That is followed by ASO planning. What is ASO planning? ASO planning is looking at the roles and responsibilities of the various parties involved in the process of transitioning. All right, it includes the output from that twofold. One is the frequency plan, and the frequency plan is how the available spectrum will be utilized in the deployed network. It also includes as a deliverable the ASO plan. Well, ASO plan now is a detailed plan on the process of transition. All right, the third stream refers to licensing policy and regulation. This is looking at the licenses and developing licensing procedures, outputs, a nationally coordinated frequency plan. Again, that now is looking at the frequencies that will be used when and in which geographical locations. The internationally coordinated frequency plan, well, because that is international, it will certainly have to consider bilateral and multilateral activities because it's not just Jamaica anymore. We're talking about the ITU and the role that it plays. And finally, in that stream, as an output, we're looking at the license conditions and terms, as well as the assigned procedures, right? That primarily deals with spectrum, right? And operating rights, as well as broadcast rights. Fourthly, this is going on now, all the network stuff. And Aldo will speak to that in more detail, and certainly the broadcasters will bring you up to speed as to what has been going on. All right, what you see there is the outputs. This is more from a documentation and planning perspective. All right. Then finally, license administration. Well, this again is if you notice from the previous, let's see if you can go back up there quickly as possible. I was going to put it right after this so that I won't have to do this, but nonetheless, if you notice license administration, which is in the yellow band, it's in the simulcast phase. So this is actually dealing with when the transmitters are turned on, when ATV state transmitters are turned off, and when transmitters are put into the master MIFR. Master, what it stands for? Forgot what it stands for, Malango. Right? This is a registry. Right. Okay. Now, so those were the building blocks to all of this. And we looked at all of these different activities as proposed by the roadmap. And to be honest, it was stressful. It was stressful trying to figure out all of this. Because inside of that, even though the document spoke to it, there wasn't particular emphases in areas that we thought were important. So we looked at it and came up with, yes, a solution, right? You know, football, touchdown. We have yeah, American football. Thank you. Thank you. I follow it a lot. We have looked at this and we have reorganized the streams. Because if you notice, streams 1, 3, and 5 are related to policy, are related to regulations, licensing, etc. So we've brought those 3 into one stream. And in any case, the same subject matter experts are in the 3 streams. So might as well bring it all into one discussion as a whole. So we've done that. Stream 2, which is the ASO planning as well as the network remain, but we recognized that we needed to add a stream to this. And that stream was the communications and public education. All through this last 3 days so far, we have been focusing primarily on the infrastructure, the network, and so on. And I tell you, Gary took us through a day and a half. He says it's 30,000. I say it's 10 feet, right? The level of detail that Gary provided us with, I was spinning with all the math and trigonometry and integration. I didn't do that since university days, but I don't intend to take you through that. But nonetheless, the communications and public education, we need a robust, intensive, and aggressive public education and awareness campaign, right? Targeting not only local, but the diaspora as well, targeting our partners, and all of this being done in a collaborative manner. It's not going to be easy, all right? So that is a very, very, very important activity which we have taken on as a separate stream to give it emphasis. All right, now the key accomplishments to date. We have established a project management office. We have identified key resources in that project management office. Aldo is on board, and I've been working very, very closely with Aldo and the team to look at the networking side of it at first, because that's where a lot of the emphasis has been to date. But we've also I have had at least 17 meetings with key stakeholders, right? Having discussions on the project as they see it, a bit of the history of it, but more importantly, looking ahead, the successes, the risks, the constraints, etc., and determining for each of these stakeholders what their success criteria are, what they consider to be the risks and challenges, so that we could put it in the pot. And as Trinidaders like to say, make a cook up, make a kalaloo, right? One pot, and stir it all up. And then we find a solution for that. We have established these work streams, and we have been meeting regularly on a fortnightly basis. And in that regard, we have put high-level senior executive emphasis on this. Cordell is ex officio officer. He sits on everything, right, and brings his authority to every work stream. So does Dr. Myers-Hamilton, Maria. She is heavily involved in our activities, including the Deputy Executive Director at the BCJ, right, Mrs. Wolfen. And from the Office of the Prime Minister, Mr. Cox, Davian Cox, Principal Director, Acting Information Division, Office of the Prime Minister. So we have senior persons involved in these streams. In addition to that, we also have senior executives from the BCJ, from the SMA, as well as OPM involved in these activities. So we bring in the full Monty to this project. And of course, the broadcasters, right? The broadcasters are involved in this as well. We'll be working closely with them, and we expect to continue that close collaboration and support. Looking ahead, as Cordell indicated, our target, emphasis, underline, bold, is still 2023. Notice no date, 2023. Again, evidence-based, and we will see what happens as we progress. Robust public education and sensitization campaign. As Cordell says, the shortest possible simulcast period. The advantages are significant if we can do that. Incumbent broadcasters will operate their own transmission networks as well as multiplex operations. We're looking at implementing an independent multiplex operator. So as services come on board, other entities can enter the market. We're looking at close, as I said, collaboration, BCJ and SME, with the broadcasters and providing maximum support. And with that, I would like to thank you. And that's the end of my presentation. Short and sweet as I promised.
Thank you, Trevor. And while I don't necessarily need to stand up and introduce each person one at a time, I have to change seats anyway, so I'll stand up and introduce Mr. Aldo Cagnini, longtime ATSC member. How long have you been working with ATSC?
Hey, you're revealing my age now.
No, because he started when he was 6, so it's okay. Yeah.
Let's say it was in the previous century.
Previous century. Welcome, Aldo. Thank you.
Thank you. I was going to give my remarks from my seat, partly because I did not want to upstage anyone, especially Trevor. I had the podium yesterday, but then we would have to play musical chairs, wouldn't we? So this is fine. And Trevor, if I could borrow your slides, actually, I can show the parallel of my involvement with the overall project. So if you could bring those back up, please.
Means I did a good job.
Do I have to hit the green button to start it? Sorry? Oh, I got to hit the. Why do I know what you mean?
Here, let me show you.
Okay, I am pressing that. There we go. It says green. There we go. Okay. Okay, so if I get to. Okay, yeah, I could start with that. So yes, good morning to everyone. As you heard earlier, I have been brought in as technical advisor to the Broadcasting Commission, and in that capacity, what I am doing is essentially bringing a lot of past experience with not only ATSC technology, but implementation and even business issues, as well as transition issues into this program. I know that some of my ATSC colleagues have privately expressed some concern to me about some of the milestones of this project and this transition, and asked questions about whether they were realistic and so forth. And I echo what Cordell said this morning, in that the dates that have been publicly announced are target dates. And of course, those dates will adjust themselves to the realities of deployment, of supply chain, of consumer uptake, and so forth. One of the most important things here is, of course, what's happening in this process is that a new way of delivering information and content to consumers is being unrolled into the country. And there's going to be a certain speed at which the consumers take that up, and that speed is certainly going to be part of the process, a measuring of that to know what the proper simulcast period should be. So all of those things are being taken into account. And I can tell you already from the meetings that I've had, not only with Broadcasting Commission and Spectrum Management, but with broadcasters themselves, that they are all very much aware of all of those issues, and they are all very, very skilled people, both technically and business-wise and policy-wise in all of those groups. So there's every indication that this will be a very successful transition. So a little bit more about the technology side of this. As I said, what I'll be bringing to the overall project is an understanding of what the technical issues are and how to properly roll out services, not only so that they reach as many people as possible, but also so that it fits in within business requirements of broadcasters. And so that means a crossover between technology, as I said before, technology implementation and business issues. And so in the DTTB network, of course, there are two sides to that. There's the contribution side, and how do those networks work? What's the most efficient way of now moving digital signals amongst the different transmitter locations and even between broadcasters if that has to happen, as well as what is the coverage going to be. So today they have an analog system. Different broadcasters have different coverage patterns. They have different coverage densities in all of the different locations. And although that's somewhat of a model for what can happen next, certainly ATSC3 can improve that in many, many ways, inherently through its higher robustness and therefore better signal presentation and video presentation at the home, but also because of all these things that can be adjusted within an ATSC signal to maximize coverage or to maximize data throughput, depending on what needs to be accommodated at any particular transmitter site. So those coverage predictions, even though they're based on existing NTSC coverage, they have to adapt now to what is a realistic coverage prediction for ATSC3. And in addition, of course, there's interference considerations. And interference with ATSC3 is different than what it was with NTSC. One of the things that's a little bit simpler is that in the first transition in most parts of the world where they were transitioning from analog to digital, they were considering either shared spectrum for a longer period of time or some other version of that. And that meant that there had to be a lot of consideration for analog into digital interference, digital into analog interference, as well as co-channel interference, adjacent channels, and things like that. And even some people here will remember the old UHF taboos. Well, luckily, the situation is somewhat simpler here in that some of those considerations are not part of the frequency planning. So in some respects, it'll be a bit simpler. There's already a chunk of spectrum that has been allocated for the new DTV service. That simplifies things in a great way also. A few of the technical program has its own project schedule within the overall project, and a few of the deliverables there. One of them is a detailed description of transmission requirements. And again, some broadcasters have voiced a concern that they do not want to be constrained, especially overly constrained in what they can do, especially seeing that some transmissions are already on the air. And it's not the aim of the publication of those guidelines to constrain, but rather to have a common framework so that all broadcasters know, let's say, an envelope of typical broadcasting scenarios. People that were here on Monday and Tuesday, I know that some people walked out with their eyes somewhat glazed over at the thousands of different considerations that there actually are within ATSC. Well, certainly every broadcaster does not have to dig down that deep and have to abide by every single one of those and know, oh, wow, I have to know about what happens when I change this and change that. And that's what these guidelines are aimed at doing, is to essentially providing a core set of services that should meet all of the transmission requirements, all of the broadcasters' requirements, and more importantly, all of the consumers' needs. So that's one of the key outputs of the technical component of the project. The other one is a set-top box specification. And here again, the intent is not to constrain the capabilities of what consumers can receive in their home, but rather to be aware of what are the technical characteristics that are going to be used in, let's say, most or all of the situations, or all of the different transmitter locations, to provide a box that works efficiently and works satisfactory to receiving all the services that will be needed. And that means also what kind of features does the box need, but again, not to constrain it, but to be aware that there are certain services that will be required to be received, not only the video and audio content, but data services, emergency alerting, et cetera. And also be cognizant of what are the consumer's requirements. Are there any analog TVs out there? I understand that there's probably very few analog TVs, and so that starts to paint a picture of what the box needs to interface with. If they're mostly digital TVs, then what's the least expensive box that needs to be specified? And by the way, can there be different tiers of boxes so that people that are more economically capable could buy a box with other features? Or could features be easily added to a box with a plug-in card or something to that effect, so that, again, a very bare bones box will deliver the necessary, let's say, life support services to the home, whereas a box with other features added to it, or a more expensive box, could add other features that could be useful to people that can appreciate those. So those are some of the key outputs of the technical part of the overall project. And with that, I think I can give the stage to the next speaker. Thank you very much.
So many moving parts. So now I'd like to hear from our broadcasters. I'm not sure, we haven't really discussed protocol and order. We could sort of start and go in the order that people seated themselves, or if anybody would like to. Ladies first. That has been the, okay then. Dr. Grant.
Morning all. It has been a journey, Cordell is here and would know that we've been talking about digital switchover from 2009. Lester Spalding, we all in Jamaica know Lester Spalding and his role in broadcasting in Jamaica. And I remember him in these meetings. I remember being in these meetings when I was quiet. I just sat and took notes, watched the dynamics between my CEO and the SMA team and all of that. And it's an interesting place that we're at now. Why? Because we now see the results of that conflict, right? And I use the word conflict intentionally because I believe that sometimes we think about conflict as a bad thing. And depending on how it is executed and how we respond to it, it can be a bad thing. But the truth of the matter is that within conflict, we're allowed to understand the positions and the purpose and the viewpoints of others. And if we are mature enough, we are then able to react to what we're hearing and seeing and understand that there is a different vision from different people and they have different understandings of what they want. And you actually don't understand their life, in our case, our business model. And it allows for us to come to a better position. So I look back at that time and I'm glad we didn't choose DVB2. I'm glad we didn't choose ATSC 1.0. And I think the perfect thing has happened for us to have gotten to this point where we're now choosing ATSC 3.0. So that journey for me is important for us not to forget, because we have to have learned something from what we went through. And we shouldn't get to this point and do over everything that we did before. What's the most important thing that we would have learned from that period? That collaboration, which Madeline has been kind of pounding on us all the time, is actually a very important component of this particular engagement, because so much of it is about everything that we're doing. And there is uniqueness, but then again, there is not, because we're trying to get people to watch television. So I thought I wanted to start there. For the people who were not necessarily a part of that journey for all the time that it started, it's not a bad idea to try and understand that journey, right? Because Marcus Garvey did say that a people without a knowledge of their history indeed is like a tree without roots. So it actually is very important. So Madeline, when I was asked to speak, and I said, Madeline, what is it you want us to talk about? And she said, well, she kind of wanted to get some feedback on the boot camp and what we would have seen. So we have started on this journey really from 2008. Things got heated up when the announcement was made in January 2021 that systems go, it's good to go. We've been waiting for this, waiting for it. So once that happened, everything began to turn to see how are we going to get this thing to happen. And we began to work with targets and things that were put in that speech from the minister at that point in time. And one of the most important target was she wanted something to switch on for ATSC 3.0 in January 2021. And we committed to achieving that. And we were able to achieve that, 22. And we were able to achieve that. And the interesting part of achieving that was you kind of never knew how big it was until after it actually happened. And that's when you said, wow, third in the world, first doing this kind of switchover, it's a big deal. But the truth of the matter is that we were very prepared, and we were prepared as it was mentally, more than actually knowing all of the details. And that, I think, is very important. So what has the boot camp done? So we have a lot of people here from our organization that are here. Michael and his team came in for the training. They're not here now. They had to go back on Tuesday. Met a couple of them, and there's this light in their eyes. You know, they're just really, really now getting it. They understand the significance of not just that we turned on a switch and that, you know, people came and said, whoa, and there was a news release, but they understand significantly what it means for Jamaica, what it means for their jobs as engineers in this particular industry. They appreciate that they're now on the cutting edge of something, and that's a big deal. Their eyes are opened, they're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, I guess, like kind of where Michael and I were or are, but they're there now. And for me, if other engineers in this space, outside of the ones that are with our group, are also in that mode, then that's a brilliant thing for Jamaica. What is the other impact again for us? I think we started on this journey early. In the last 12, 16 months, we've done a lot of research, but something about this particular event has crystallized things, right? So you've been hearing Data casting, yeah, what is data casting? You go somewhere else again, you hear about data casting, but it comes here, it's all really coming together in a very tight way. And from my perspective, on the business side, you're able to really link and understand a lot more about what this would mean. Thirdly, what does it mean for TVJ? Well, what does it mean for TVJ? When I was in Detroit, I think I recall starting when Raymond asked us on that panel, and I remember indicating that television broadcasting in Jamaica started in 1963, which would be 1 year after our independence. This is really very important, right? So independence, we're 60 years this year. Television is 59 years right behind it. And we have been given the responsibility to be the custodians of that particular brand. It was Jamaica Broadcasting Corporation, which is now TVJ. And that's not a responsibility that we take lightly. We have a responsibility to ensure that broadcasting in Jamaica is first class, high tech, whatever it is supposed to be that allows Jamaica to stand with the world in saying that we do the best in broadcasting. So it is fulfilling a part of our mandate. And more significantly now, from a business perspective, we know it's something that has to be done. We have to transition. We have to get into a position where we can do more for our audiences than just watching the news at 7 o'clock each night, or watching Smile in the morning from 6 to 8:30, and not being able to watch it again. You know, I got up at 6:30. What happened to the first half an hour? I'd like to see the first half an hour. You know, stuff like that. People really want to be able to, that's available as a technology. So why shouldn't Jamaicans have it on their free-to-air television? Finally, I'd come to what does it mean to the industry? And I say finally, not because it's the least important thing, because it actually is the most important thing. I think it is putting in the space the idea of, one, do we have a broadcast industry in Jamaica? I'm asking that question because I think it's a question that needs to be asked. Or do we have broadcasters? Maybe we just have broadcasters. Maybe we don't yet have an industry. And I don't think anything is wrong with that after 59 years. We are comparing ourselves with others who have been in the space a lot longer, who are working with economies and an ecosystem around broadcasting that is far more developed and more rich. Are we at that stage yet? Those are questions that we probably need to ask ourselves. So if we ask ourselves that question, the question is this particular event that we're now going through something that will stimulate a true industry in the form that we know it's supposed to be? Or are we still probably 10, 15 years away from that? Again, I don't think either one of those things is a right or wrong answer, because if we're not ready to be a full, totally collaborative industry, the time will come and we'll get there. And this might, in fact, just be one of the steps that is carrying us to that point. However, when you go and you think about the next steps, and I thought about it long and hard, and the minister was trying to make jobs and saying 2-1 and all of that. And I thought about it and said, how important is it right now, the switching on of transmitters? You know, what difference does it make? I mean, we can set up some more releases and we can say that they're, you know, transmitters turned on, but what's the point if nobody is able to see the signal? What's the point if nobody can watch it? So the most important thing, I believe, right now is collaboration and a purpose around how do we get our audiences to transition? How do we get our audiences to switch? A lot of what we talk about, and I do ask my PM, I like to say PM because he thinks that being Prime Minister, but it's funny. I like to ask my PM to think about the fact that while you have one of your streams as communication and publicity, it really needs to be a lot more pointed if you are going to tie this along with the analog switch off thought. Because what you really want to say is, how are you switching people? What is it that is going to make people turn on their television, get their set-top box, and watch this signal? Right now, if someone in the room, like probably Atsc org said, hey, we're going to give all of the transmitters and all of the antennas that makes Jamaica have sites going all across the geography, and everybody can access the signal. We ain't got no sets, top boxes. We don't have any televisions. So for me, the question is, where can we collaborate? And how important is it for us as broadcasters to understand that that particular goal is what makes or breaks this entire effort? So we can't talk about a switch off date until people are watching the signal. We can't talk about a switch off date until people are watching the signal. We cannot speak about a switch off date until people are watching the signal. Why? Because if you do that, it will destroy the very industry that we're thinking we'd like to grow and we'd like to involve and that we think is important to us. Because without people watching the signal, there is no broadcast industry in Jamaica. So, I mean, from my perspective, that's probably one of the things that we need to think about separately as individual broadcasters, as broadcasters together. The question of how do people get to see the signal? When do we think that can happen? We have moved first, and we know that there is a clear advantage to that. We're not going to apologize for that. And we have learned a lot, right? And I think what is important for us to understand is, once a site is up and there is a set of people stimulated to be watching Atsc 3.0, every single broadcaster benefits. It doesn't matter really, because if you come after, then if people have a set, you're gonna be seeing it, right? There's one thing that I thought was interesting that Madeline said yesterday, and Madeline said, well, in the US, they compete on content and we don't compete on the technology.
Trying to get there.
Right.
That is the goal.
Right. So I thought about that a bit as well. And I think I always say it's important to apply a little bit of caution to the models that work in other environments, and assume that they will work in perfection in ours. So it's important to understand the variables, a market of 350 million people that really can be carved up into. It's always interesting to hear Americans talking about local TV, And when you think about these local TV markets, they're like 3 times the size of Jamaica. So you really are dealing with something that is very different in a direct comparison. And so the question as to when do we get to the point that we actually think that, well, we only compete on content is something that we need to think about. Are we in the space to be able to do that? Is there some content that we don't compete on and others that we do? All of it, I just think, means that we have to stop a little bit and be true to ourselves about that, so that we can arrive at the right place. Finally, what I'd like to say to our regulators and to my PM, involving the stakeholders in a meaningful way is important. Do not involve the stakeholders as a means of checking a box. At this stage, you have to understand that you need to hear from the stakeholders what their thoughts are on everything, and be comfortable with the fact that the stakeholders are about to tell you something that you really do not want to hear. But that's okay, because you need to hear it. You need to understand where it is coming from. Obviously, I've spoken to Cordell and PM and Maria about the licensing and the administration, and the fact that the stakeholders have to be a part of that conversation, primarily because we're not moving along in the path that we would have, the ideal path, right? We have to hear where the stakeholders are in the broadcasting industry on that particular issue, so that you don't end up at the end of the game having unnecessary fights and conflicts. Now, I know that in the US, this is not a unique challenge. It is not a unique challenge to the nature of what we do. What I think is different is that we don't bring the broadcasters in a meaningful way. And when I say meaningful way, I mean that you have to try just to hear their side. And we're all different broadcasters. So we have different things that are of concern to us. And it's a matter of figuring out how do we get to coexist, but coexist in a way that we are not negative, nobody's negatively impacted because you're trying to be good to one, right? But I am really excited about what has happened this week. Really fascinated that so many people from ATSC would have taken the time to come here. I happened to be at NAB this year in Las Vegas, and I think the most impactful thing for me was to go to the ASTSC booth and see Jamaica's name up in lights as the third country to switch on. It's kind of thing that kind of gives you goosebumps. And at that point, you kind of realize like, wow, right? We're a part of something really, really, really big. We're a part of something that is really, really, really impactful. And the world is watching us. For me, it's beautiful to have people talking about Jamaica. It's not about sports, and it's not about entertainment, and it's not about crime. I really think it's great. You know, we're just involved in something that is. Yes, I think it's really important for us to understand just what we're embarking on and what it means for many other countries. I think the final thing I want to point out is about the geography of the country. Yes, another final. The geography of the country is the last thing that I think. That's what the geography of the country is something that is of interest to me, because I was looking through and realizing that most of the ATSC rollouts that have happened are urban-centered activities, right? So we're really doing something very, very unique and special. I don't think ATSC actually knows how this signal is going to behave in a country that has our geographical layout, if I'm correct. I don't think they know, right? So technically, we're kind of like in a little lab kind of scenario here. And I think that alone also makes it very important that we appreciate just how special it is what we're doing. So thanks, Madeline.
Thank you. And since this is a broadcaster-driven initiative, we will let the broadcasters decide who's going to come up to the podium next. Chris, David? They have made their decision.
Yeah, I heard that quip about age. I actually played in my first golf tournament about 3 weeks ago. I hadn't played golf in about 10 years. And when they asked me what category, and when the word super senior came out of my mouth, yeah. So thank you very much, Madeline. I haven't had the real pleasure of meeting you yet, but hopefully before you leave, we can meet. I think I need to kind of explain, because some of you sort of have this curious look on your face when we're introduced as CVM TV or Love TV and Ready TV. So Ready TV is actually a digital television broadcast network that we've been operating here for 5 years in Jamaica. It's an 8 multiplex, now a 9 multiplex operation. And because of that experience and expertise, both CVM and Love Television, who are the other 2 free-to-air broadcasters, have relied on us for guidance and, of course, to get their network up. So, you know, we've been broadcasting CVM and Love in Kingston and St. Andrew for a while, testing a transmitter. We brought it down here, and we're now broadcasting from Flower Hill. So you can kind of see the work that's going into the testing and the preparation for both CBM TV and Love Television. David, don't mind me saying, David runs Love TV from end to end. He actually does all the programming, content management, distribution, muxing, everything for Love Television. And for CBM TV, we do a lot of the backhaul. So for instance, we've been data casting now for 4 or 5 years. We do educational channels for the Ministry of Education, 24/7 educational channels. We do the backhaul for CBM, moving their signal from tower to tower, just simply because we have an island-wide digital network. So you see, the idea for smaller operators is to collaborate in a meaningful way using the same infrastructure. So we have a digital broadcast infrastructure that is then easily tapped into by free-to-air broadcasters to get their ATSC3 signals now up in the air very quickly. So overall, I'd like to thank ATSC organization. It's been a fantastic 4 days, a lot of information. It is the thing that we have advocated for most, which has been seen to be a challenge to the direction, but it is really so important to get the right information, especially if you're being asked to guide organizations and make financial decisions. You have to ask the questions that you need to put into a business case. It's very easy to get excited about technology, and I used to run the largest telco in the region, so I know people can get really excited about technology, and so do I. But when you have to then go before a board and ask for $10 million, and this is the return that you're going to make, it's a totally different scenario. As a professional, you need the kind of information, so a lot of which we gleaned over the last 4 days, to be able to guide that board. Otherwise, you are going to look stupid. People are going to ask you the hard questions that are very obvious questions, and if you can't give the answer, and as Cordell says, evidence-based responses, you're going to look pretty silly. So there are just a couple of things I'd like to say coming out of this meeting. It was fantastic in terms of what it was meant to achieve, I believe. I think it could have been, for instance, on the timing of it, it could have been more useful to have this kind of meeting before we were asked to submit our network designs. Little things like that I think might have helped. And so that's something we need to look at going forward. Sort of educating, then asking for network designs. Minor issue because it's not too late, but it's just a point that occurred to me as we went through the last 4 days. As somebody who has operated now 2 digital broadcast networks, because the reason I asked about the reaction of the telcos, because I personally was the one that launched the first digital broadcast network here when I was CEO of the telco. We launched mobile television with DVB-H, and we built a DVB-H network in Jamaica. And I maybe I am too old because you get jaded with sometimes with experience. I'll never forget how Nokia, which was then the global dominant player in mobile handsets, including in Jamaica, they had about 70% of the handset market in Jamaica. And they flew me around the world, wooing me on this mobile TV and DVB-H and what a fantastic thing it was going to be. And they came out here and they supported us with the mobile television launch, and it was a fantastic product. Some of you might remember the Buju Banton concert in Miami, his last show that was just before he went into prison. And so we broadcast it here on DVB-H in Jamaica. And we literally had to call riot police when we ran out of phones. They destroyed the cable wires, the line halfway through store, because they assumed that, hey, knowing the reputation of cable wireless, we were going to pretend like we did run out of phones and then bring it back at a higher price. Which perhaps we were thinking about it, but we didn't do it. No, we were not thinking about it. We literally ran out of phones. We did not understand. It was the power of Buju. They wanted to see this last concert before Buju was going into prison, and it was going to be broadcast only on these specialty phones. And they destroyed the place. It was a fantastic success. And then Nokia went bankrupt. and the mobile television. And you could still get handsets, but you then you were the only people in the ecosystem. You had to go out and buy the phones. And the reality is that the minimum order quantities, just Jamaica alone couldn't support that. So it is those kind of experiences that we need to ask the hard questions. Not that it prevents you. When you ask hard questions and you look at the bucket list of challenges, it's not about stopping the process. It's about making sure we don't sleepwalk past these issues, because they're going to come back and bite you at some point. So sometimes you're not going to be able to mitigate them, but at least you're aware of them. So I'm here to tell you that, based on that experience, the transmission side is, some people say 25%, I tell you it's 10% of the challenge, the transmission side. We can get up on ATSC through signal. There are lots of expertise in Jamaica, IP engineers, we have people in the field who have been doing digital television broadcasting for many, many years. David is probably one of the best proponents in the world. I'll put him alongside any IP engineer anywhere in the world. But the biggest side of the DSO is going to be from the antenna in the consumer homes to providing him support. That's 90% of the DSO. And if you don't start working through all of those details and all of those challenges and coming up with plans, this thing is not going to be a success. So we need to really recognize that transmission is not it's a challenge. It's, we have mountains and hills and valleys. And I can tell you, we have so many people that have done antenna installs and talk to customers, because those are the real issues that are absolutely time consuming. There's a funny story we always talk about in the office, where a lady called, and of course they want it's Jamaica. If they know you as a boss, they want you to fix them problem. Don't send a little printer. And there was a lady who was adamant that I had to come out to her house because this thing don't work. Digital TV is foolishness. And I said, all right. So I went out to her house, and she had put her antenna in a breadfruit tree. Which, all right, that's fine. It's probably not ideal, but it should still work. Except she had not attached a cable to the antenna and then to her set-top box. And I said, but the cable came in the box. Why didn't you? Well, you said it's wireless. Point. One love. Point. It's a true story. David, I did say it's wireless. And I laughed and I smiled. And when I got back to the office, everybody said, but that's true. So when Trevor talks about communication, I am telling you, so the sharing of that information and how it is culturally delivered. Another hat I used to wear was, I ran the Cricket World Cup across the Caribbean. The biggest mistake we made was communication. I wouldn't say it's a mistake, it was the biggest challenge, because we were in 9 different countries. We all speak English, but we speak different languages. What one word mean in Trinidad don't mean the same thing in Jamaica. In Trinidad, for instance, if you say a party bus, it means it dead, it flopped. In Jamaica, if you say a party bus, it's great, fantastic. And in fact, one of the biggest controversies of the World Cup took place because of that miscommunication. So, my Trinidadian counterpart was putting together part of a deal. The Jamaican was putting together the other half. The Trini called the Jamaican and said, you're gone through. Gone through in Trinidad mean it dead, it fall through the floor. Gone through in Jamaica mean you're gone through. It is hilarious now, but it caused the most incredible contractual issues. And I say these things because I hope it's memorable. But the sharing of information needs to be culturally sensitive. How it is going to be interpreted. We put together a prohibited and restricted list, a PNR list for the Cricket World Cup. It is a standard list for events to a stadium, the PNR list. prohibited and restricted. Prohibited would be things like, okay, you can't bring a gun into the stadium, you can't bring whatever, or things that are banned. Restricted means there's some kind of restriction. So, okay, your ice cooler, you can bring an ice cooler, but it has to be so and so size. This is the restriction on it. You can bring a musical instrument, but you have to register it at the gate, and so on. Well, Jamaica or the Caribbean does not make a distinction between prohibited and restricted. Everything means ban. So the communication was this disaster. Everybody thought music was banned. And they were like, music is playing in the stadium, but it's supposed to be banned. No, music wasn't banned. It was never banned. There was a restriction on musical instruments, and the restriction was you needed to register it at the gate. So I say these things, so hopefully as we go along with the process, we understand the detail that needs to be expanded on. We need to have a common glossary. Something I said in my first DSO meeting 5 years ago or 4 years ago, because people in the room were using terms differently. What is a MUX versus a multiplex? And what is a multiplexer? Does it mean the transmission network? Does it mean end-to-end? And so on. And so we need to develop a common glossary that everybody that is involved in the DSO can say the right things. We need to have the right information out there. And in this regard, the regulators have a serious challenge in controlling the politicians, the political side, and what they say, because I'm telling you, they don't understand. They've been talking about a $4,000 Jamaican set-top box, and communicating that to the public. Well, we know there's no set-top box that is going to be 4,000 Jamaican dollars unless they're planning to subsidize it as such. And it's little thing. We've been talking about this Atsc3 for the last 4 years, delivering internet, an internet service. That's because I suspect it's all innocent that when we talk about things like data casting and data services, the common man is going to interpret that as an internet service. An internet service meaning, okay, I get in 100 meg per second pipe and I can download my Netflix and watch my Netflix and so on. So we have to be just culturally sensitive. Finally, as the last thing I'd say is the devil is in the detail. And I want to give you Madeline and Atsc and why we're going to need the international expertise mixed with the local experience, which I really think it will be, if this is a truly national project, you're going to want to avail yourself of all the experience and expertise that has been taking place in Jamaica already. Those people that have been out in the bushes, knowing what customers trying to put up a digital TV antenna, what that experience is like. If you go on Amazon, for instance, there are 400 pages of digital antennas you can buy. Which people are not going to understand which antenna they need. Is it the little 3-prong Yagi, or is it a high-powered DAT bus out of Spain, 100 or 150 US? So we have to utilize the local experience with that international expertise. But more than that, we're going to need international help. And this is where the Atsc organization can probably be most useful. And I want to give you my experience as just a consumer trying to buy an Atsc3. And I'm probably atypical for a particular socioeconomic grouping that might be in Miami, trying to find an Atsc3 TV to bring back to Jamaica. There are 8 Best Buys, because it's one of the first names you think of as a Jamaican when you go to Miami, a Best Buy or BrandSmart and so on. We're always looking for cheap deals. I went to Best Buy, and there are 8 of them. The Central Best Buy telecommunications, their call center, whatever, they didn't know what an Atsc3 TV was. So they were not able to guide me where to go to get an Atsc3 TV. In fact, I messaged Gary Allen to help me. Where could I get one? Because I knew that he had bought some. I visited 4 of those 8 Best Buys that are in South Florida because I'm trying to find this thing. Nobody on the sales floor in Miami, none of them knew what Atsc3 was. So if you guys have an opportunity, you need to talk to Best Buy. Because I'm just a consumer. I'm just assuming that a Best Buy would know what an Atsc3 or a Next Gen TV was. There's no signage in any of those Best Buys in South Florida about Next Gen or Atsc3. I did research on models. So I then started to call Best Buy about do you have this particular model that I realized has an ATSC3? So I bought it, and I brought in, it's a Samsung. But the challenge was we couldn't get it to work initially. And so I need support now from Samsung. And that's when I realized, whoa, this is going to be an issue because Samsung Jamaica reports into Samsung Direct DR. Jamaica is classed as Latin America. And we've seen this before in the broadcast industry with the content. So our support for Samsung is Latin America, and they had no clue what ATSC through. They could not help me. And I could not get Samsung USA to support me here in Jamaica because as far as Samsung Group is concerned, Jamaica is part of Latin America. This is the structure. This is, and they're very hard and fast. And we saw it in the pay TV industry. All of our content, because we are classified as Latin America, all of our content is Spanish. And it's been years trying to lobby to get the motion picture industry, so we haven't been able to do it yet. And this is where, so we have Samsung reps here, LG reps here, and I was telling them, look, you're going to have to help us with that because that's going to be a challenge for the retailers who want to stock the TVs. They're going to need support for it. Because I didn't reach out to Samsung International, I reached out to the Samsung dealer here who put me on to this Samsung organization, and they directed me to Latin America, Samsung Latin America, and they couldn't help me. So these are the devil is in the detail. Let us start making this bucket list of all these issues, utilize some of the experience and expertise that have been here for a while and doing it. And look, at the end of the day, I have no doubt Jamaica will make a success of it, but we just need to get all the assistance we can. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And just to underscore what you're saying, each region, each country has its own particular challenges. In the United States, believe me, the broadcasters are talking to Best Buy. And Best Buy says, oh, you have 50% of the country? We're so sorry, we're a national organization. Tell us when you're closer to 100%, and then we will train our sales staff. Right? So we have many, many challenges in the United States that are also kind of unique to that country. We will get there. I'm sorry that Sandy Kosach from Pearl TV is not still here because he could sort of expand upon the number of phone calls, meetings, and high-level conversations they've been having with Best Buy to try to get the retailers to understand what this is. But like you said about Jamaica, we will get there. Yes, indeed. Okay, Mr. Casanova, please.
I'm the shortest one here, and I'm the last one to speak. Morning, everyone. My journey in digital broadcasting. In 2008, there was an RFP that was issued by the Broadcasting Commission for digital television license. And I don't know if anybody knows Digicel. Digicel and a group of us came together and we did respond to the RFP, and we won a national digital television distribution license. So my journey started a long time ago, and we started the research. You know what killed the project? It was over $153 for an ABC box at the time. You know what an ABC box is? A simple set-top box, advanced video coding, but it was not affordable when we look at the business plan. After months of research, it was put on hold. In 2010, Cable and Wireless came along and they did the DVB-H project. And what Chris said, Nokia went bankrupt and the project stopped. Fast forward a couple of years ago, Ready TV started a television, same distribution for the people of Jamaica. One of the hardest things there is for our people to understand what to do as it relates to putting up an antenna. Sorry, putting up an antenna and receiving a signal. And we embarked on a journey, getting young engineers out of UTech and getting them trained up. Then we started seeing other problems, where again, it takes a long while for our people to understand. When you have an analog system running and there's noise, you can always see a picture. It will look degraded, but the television still works. In the digital arena, it either work or don't work. So currently, there has to be a lot of education in terms of educating our people to understand the difference. All right. Sorry. This week has been great. I want to thank everyone who came and participated. But the conversation must continue. And if there's one thing we have learned at Ready TV, and of course with the responsibility of guiding Love Television to the point where we now have ATSC 3.0 transmitters up and running, is a togetherness. Mark, how are you? So Mark came and showed us yesterday data casting, blah, 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 blah. We did that a long time ago, Cardell, with Mark. So we, if you look at the history, we have been there, but there's a lot more work that needs to be done. Technically, when we speak about SFN, we have not seen anything yet. Anybody can remember what SFN is? Single frequency network. Wait until you have to get two transmitters, one 10 miles away and one 2 miles away, to talk to a cheap set-top box that doesn't understand the echoes, and both signals are coming to that set-top box and not dropping in the guard interval. And you have a set of people right where the transmitter part crosses. They'll never be able to see TV. And so you call Progira, Mats, and imagine, Mats from Progira, and we ask, we need some help. And we redesign, recalculate, and all of a sudden, somebody parks a truck somewhere, and the signal bounces and self-destruct. So the reason why sessions like these are important is to get us to understand what will happen in such a mountainous country like Jamaica, where digital is concerned. So there has to be a lot of education, research, and good thinking for this to happen. ATSC 3.0 is one of the greatest technologies available, and for the future and the things we can do. We tested our first ATSC 3.0 transmitter in our lab in Portmore about 5 years ago. So we have been waiting just like TVJ. The minute it was announced, we were ready to go on here. As a matter of fact, someone asked us, why did we have the transmitter gates here? Continue to ask us why we have transmitters in the lab. And we said we're not ready to go out yet. Most people did not understand. That's ATSC 3. We're broadcasting from Flower Hill at 11 watts. I think TVJ pumping up about 400 and something watts. But we understood what we had to do. Another thing I must make mention of, as we put transmitters in the field, we need suppliers to understand and help us to get boxes out there. Chris speaks about TV, I don't know if TV will become a reality in the next 5 years. Set-top boxes can get us where we want to go. So for the vendors who are here, we all really need to come together and work a plan. We have migrated from analog to 3.0. If the vendors, MOQ yesterday, we spoke to somebody here, the MOQ to get a set-top box in Jamaica right now at $100, the minimum amount you have to buy is 200,000. Then we need to talk to our government. How can they help us? It's going to take a lot of investment. If one set-top box is around, they'll be able to get all the services from the 3 operators. So the minister should be here today to understand what we're talking about. If the prices don't go down, then we're looking at 10 years. If they go down, we can look at 2 years to design, from design stage to where it's actually in Jamaica. So we need to talk to customs, finance ministry, everybody, all the stakeholders, from the prime minister level all the way down. Because no matter how good a plan is, listen to what Madeleine said yesterday. I met Madeleine a couple months ago. I know they didn't know that there are other broadcasters in Jamaica. If every one of us don't come together, then we're looking at 15 years. No, listen what I'm saying. If we don't get it together where the prices go down, I've been buying set-top boxes for a long time. So I'm pleading to the government of Jamaica. After all of this and the support from Atsc group, the government has to play a role. Where are the customs? Can we see your face, please? Mr. Coombs is here. So Mr. Coombs, we need to help our country. So I'd like you to take that message back and tell them what you have learned over these 4 days. The transmitters are the easiest thing. I can plug. My design calls for 21 transmission points. I can put in the 21. But as Doctor said just now, who will be watching? How long will it take? And at the same time, we'll have to be paying JPS. So you see how the disaster can happen, and it's not an earthquake. Right? So we need all the stakeholders. It's not a joke thing. It's a lot of work. It has been 10 years. It's a lot of work. And to get Madeleine and her team here and all of these vendors, I know every vendor inside here. Hey, and insist, every single vendor, I know everybody because they all come to the NAB and to the IBC in the Netherlands every year. And we go to these places to gather information to bring back to Jamaica. But the most important part for me is the set-top boxes and getting the prices down. Otherwise, to us, is involving so long with all this book about, you learn every day, you learn more. I kept quiet and didn't ask a question this week because basically we had the handbook already. And I've met teams from Atsc 3.0. I've asked Madeleine to come and even look at what we're doing. That's how far we have gone. But we like to operate incognito. Yeah, man. So we want to thank everyone. Thank the group that came, all the vendors. It's important that we continue the conversation. Thank you.
thank you so much to all our panelists. One of the things that I love about what we just heard was the truth. You know, we don't need to go into this with rose-colored glasses, pretending that everything's going to be okay. You know, we need to know what are the biggest challenges. And having listened to these panelists, you know, I kind of have two questions, but we have a little bit of time. Perhaps anybody in the audience would like to add their remarks, ask a question. Cordell, Maria, maybe you have some more things to say. Would anybody in the audience like to speak at this time? Yes, we have one person.
Good morning. I'm Fillmore Chowers from the Spectrum Management Authority. I'm trying to do a rough math in my head as to how long will you have to run the analog network along with the digital network? And I know for sure it will impact the cost of your operation. So I have a number in my head in terms of number of years. So I would like to know how sustainable is that, and for how long do you think you will have to be running both network together?
Okay, thank you. I think that was a question for our three broadcasters. Question is how long is it sustainable to be doing the simulcast, and what do you anticipate is going to be the length of the simulcast period?
I mean,
Ladies first.
the simulcast concept has to do with a business model, right? So you're up and running, and it does speak to, and I've spoken to the PM about this, it does speak to the concept of the rollout and this idea that, yeah, let's turn on a whole lot of transmitters. Every time you turn on a transmitter, you run out of costs. You turn on all these transmitters and there are no TVs and there are no set-top boxes. The question becomes, what is the point? So essentially, when you think about what is the simulcast period going to look like, it is directly driven, Fillmore, by how are we going to get consumers to switch? And in my interpretation, this is probably better thought through in a geographical type of phasing. So am I here in Kingston and St. Andrews, the most populated area? Are we up and running? Everybody can get the signal. Are we able to get sets into that area and set top boxes? What is the take-up? Because you have to understand, and I'm so glad a spectrum management person has asked that question, because you must always remember that connected to our business model is advertiser and audience, or audience and advertiser. So it's not merely about having an analog system on, having a ATSC 3 system on, and when are we going to shut off one? If you don't have the people that are there that we can convert into money, the entire business will collapse. I don't know that at this stage, when we don't have a sense of how quickly we can start to get the boxes in and get the televisions in, that you can logically or with any real, actual sense, say what a timeline will look like, because we don't know. I would say, especially after the panel that spoke yesterday, they're talking about 18 months to get televisions in. None of those suppliers represent our mass, because they're not, as they indicated, they are not focused on the cheaper sets. The set-top box is the big mover, and the question as to, I think Ms. Casanova spoke about the numbers that become viable. So the question is, how quickly do we get to those numbers? Now, I still put another point in there. So the 900,000 households, let us say we want to get 400,000 set-top boxes. We're not going to convert 400,000 set-top boxes in 12 months. That's not going to happen. Unless you're giving them away free, in which case, then fine, you just go drop them off to the houses along with the antennas. Don't think that's going to happen. If people have to purchase these, and if you even right now landed 400,000 boxes in Jamaica, you're not going to get that implemented, I think, in under 2 years at minimum. So the variables that are there, I don't think it is reasonable. I know you guys like targets and you like to have your trends, but I don't think it is a practical thing for us to be really trying to say this is how long we think this switchover is. I'm probably more aligned with where Cordell is that we have to assess, see how things are moving, and it's a continuous target. I will look and say, it's looking like we could get there in a faster mode based on how the take-up is.
Well, if I could answer that, I could probably write the business case for many global operators. It is the million-dollar question because when you're trying to put together a business case, it has to be some kind of, you can't go into a boardroom and say, I'm guessing 5 years. It has to be evidence-based. People are not going to put $10 million or $8 million, whatever it's going to take, into a project that you can't have reasonable evidence-based projections and predictions. One of the information gaps, for instance, here in Jamaica, certainly when I'm doing business cases that utilizing US technologies. Okay, well, what's happening in the US market, Madeline? And so it would be helpful if I had we had an understanding of the penetration rates in the US and the projections for those penetration rates of Atsc 3. So, okay, if it's growing 10% a year in the US, I can say, all right, well, reasonable assumption based on our GDP, we'll grow at 5%, and I'm just picking numbers out of the air just for an example. So those are the kind of that's the kind of information that we need. How is it growing in the US? So I can say, okay, to our board, it's growing in the US at this. We can reasonably assume at our GDP it'll grow here at Y. In terms of the timing of set-top boxes being made available at reasonable pricing, you're going to have to ask the vendors, because the truth is, right now our set-top boxes are retailing for about 4,000, and so we can brag about having 70% coverage now with digital broadcasts, but even at a set-top box at 20 US, it doesn't fly off the shelf, especially post-pandemic. So we have to be mindful of that as we do our projections. So I don't know how long it's going to take. It's certainly one of the things I'm going to have to at some point make a predictive guess. And the retailers will have their own guesstimates, I would presume, about how many TVs get sold, how many set-top boxes get sold now, to sort of guide that process. So that's where we are.
Thank you. Cass?
For me?
Maybe grab
Hello?
Chris's. Oh, you got it. It's going.
Yeah. It's hard to say, Fillmore. It's very hard to say, because somebody buying an Atsc 3 television now, how will you convert that person? Until you convert that person to watch the free tier, it's a whole different ballgame. The set-top box will get us there faster, but again, it comes down to cost and who we subsidize. If we get the cost down, with even what TVJ is doing now, it's great. TVJ has a nice campaign, because the thing is, TVJ campaigns, it helps CVM and it helps Love Television. Because once you have that one box in your house, then we're all on the same platform. One box, receive the same signal, just on different frequencies. So the campaign will have to kick in like yesterday. The government.
So I just want to say this, because again, I just want to make a statement that we're looking at this and we recognize that set-top boxes is really where we need to be looking at. And although it's in the embryonic discussion right now, we are actually looking. I have a very loud mouth. Everybody can hear me. I don't think I need a mic. But anyway, just to assure you, we're exploring all avenues. And we actually had a very lovely talk with UWI, and we're going to bring UTech because we have technical people haircuts. You know, you are a highly technical individual who is known. So what if we can work with a vendor in building set-top boxes here? Okay? We understand we did not plan for a pandemic. It landed on us. So one of the things now we have to adapt and adjust. And we're going to work very hard with all of the manufacturers, because if they can teach us how to build it, then it's a game changer. So that's one of the things we are exploring, because we have bright individuals. I'm happy to say that members of my team have actually come on through an internship program and learned RF, which you know is not an easy journey either. So it can be done. It's just how you slice and dice it. But we recognize the issue, but we are moving forward. We're moving forward collectively. Now, in terms of the TV sets, I have no doubt by next Thanksgiving, the prices are going to come down. I have no doubt. I'm predicting this. Why? Brazil. How many people live in Brazil, Madeline?
A lot.
Mexico. How many people live in Mexico? Those are people. Those are markets. Those are markets that are opening up right now. So I'm going to make a prediction. Next Thanksgiving coming up, all being well, you want to see some prices going down, because demand and supply. That's my humble opinion. But the government is working to ensure success, because all of your success is our success. And at the end of the day, it's access to the little man. Remember, when you think of access, think of rural access. I don't want to think of urban. The Kingstonians are quite okay, you know, we're good. We're Chris and Curry. We're good. But the people in the rural parts of Jamaica, those are the ones we need to reach. And we have to reach them in the right way, in the right time. So again, I just consulted my team, the team here, my team. Mike, I keep on putting on my team in. Sorry, Claire. But anyway, the fact is we can run parallel, because like in IT, we run things in parallel and we break it up. We zone it up. And then we roll out and we have a testing environment. So we slice and dice again until we get there. And as Cordell said, nothing is cast in concrete. But we're not taking 10 years. I can guarantee you that. We're not taking 10 years. Okay? We're not going to take 10 years.
I understand that. I'd suggest also that the local vendors, Cordell, get involved, the courts, the singers, because they can help. Where's singer? Stand up singer. Right. So local vendors like singer could really ship in maybe 500,000 boxes.
Well, let me interrupt for just a moment.
And Madeline, I do also have one more question here in a minute.
Yes. Let me interrupt for, well, maybe we'll let this question go and then I'll make my comment. Yes.
Okay. I heard Claire, TVJ, she spoke eloquently about communication and collaboration. And I would ask, what were the quantitative or qualitative analysis that the government used, the cabinet, to make the prediction for the date? And then, based on what she said, I'm looking like a modular program where they ask the broadcasters to run the compilers without the modules be given to them. So you're running a compiler and you're getting errors. So I am saying now, if we don't have any quantitative or qualitative data to make the decision from a small island state, what are we going to, because Atsc here today is calling the different vendors, the different players here. How are we now going to harness this, since we have no qualitative or quantitative data to make the decision as it relates to money? Because if you ask Command to invest 100 million in something, and then you're going to ask him to wait the next 10 or 15 years for a return, then it's going to be a problem. So we would like to see from a cabinet perspective, which the Cardinal can speak of since he represents the cabinet here just now.
You got a promotion, Cordell.
Yeah,
You've been promoted.
no. He spoke eloquently that it's an arm of government and so forth and so forth. So then he have to bear that cap at this moment since the minister is not here. How will the return be given back and how long should we wait? Or if we are just going to keep on running the compiler for those who understand programming without getting the modules to see that it is running properly.
Read my lips. Know your taxes.
I think there is something that's important for you to understand for Television in Jamaica. We're not a new business. What we do is broadcasting. That is our business. There is not an option. There is not an option unless it is that we're not going to be in the business that we're in. Therefore, this has to work. It will work. It is not the first time that our business has gone through a transition of a technology. It is a part of the business that we're in. This is the most exciting one to date. It probably is the most challenging because before that, black and white to color. The black and white to color is the example that we go back to all the time, and all of what went on with that discussion in Jamaica and how we eventually got there, and the fact that people kept the sets until they just couldn't work. And there were stories last night about people having the Philips set on the stand, and it stopped working, and you can't get the parts, and you must go out and get a new TV. There was no set-top box argument at that time, but we've been through transitions before, is a point I'm trying to make. And from our perspective, this is not an option. This has to happen. We have to make the best business case as far as is possible. Everybody has spoken about the challenge that you have in making a projection, and which is why the analog switch off conversation is so important to us, because at this point in time, the analog component of the broadcast is running the business. So we can't be thinking about, well, let's shut down what's running the business to go figure out if this is going to work next year. So that is a careful balance that we have to work with. But I am confident, as Maria has indicated, the TVs are going to come. I don't believe, and this is where I'd probably depart a little bit from Casanova, while I do believe that the set-top box is now the initial push, I don't think the set-top box lives with us forever, or forever meaning 5 to 10 years. Eventually, as the sets come into the market and it has in the tuners and all of those different specialities, that is going to begin to take center stage. It's nice to see Singer and Courts in the space, because we know that they're going to start pushing once they get those TVs in, and we're getting, hopefully, if TCL comes in the market, I mean, everything's sort. If TCL comes in the market, and if China starts, I think that's going to change a lot. But directly to your question, we can't wait, and we cannot not do this.
Well, I think we need to wrap up. Oh, you want to have one more before?
I do,
yes,
because
last word. Yes. Besides me. Go ahead.
It is also important that we recognize there's a dichotomy also within broadcasting. And what, for instance, a TVJ with 75% of the existing free-to-air market share has, and are able to do to simulcast is not going to be the same for Love Television that has 0% and have been waiting on the digital switchover to start to try and get some market share. Love TV has not been broadcasting in analog for a while because it really made no sense once the DSO was announced for Love to build out an analog network. They had to wait until a standard was selected and can now plan a digital rollout. So, until the market that is accessible grows, it's going to be really difficult for a Love board to invest and run a digital broadcast network and pay for that knowing that they have no market share to get, that there are only 100 people with an ATSC3 television set. So it is doubly different, I don't know how to phrase it and how to coach it, how to massage it, but hopefully the powers that be need to understand that you can't treat in my view anyway, I don't think you can deal with a dominant player the same way you deal with the small players who are trying to grow. And that's going to happen also with independent people that you might want to try and bring on, like a Mellow Television and so on.
Very good. Thank you very much for this candid discussion. And I think it's both inspiring and sobering at the same time. While Jamaica may be the first country to go from analog to ATSC 3.0, Jamaica is not the first country to go from analog to digital. And you can look at the history of other countries that have gone from analog to digital. How long did their transition take? What were the most important aspects of the transition? People in this room have been through the analog to digital switchover in the United States. Aldo, others, Skip, others here, and can speak about, okay, it took however many years it took. These were the key drivers to how long it took. These are the ways that you could potentially shorten that time frame according to the experience of history. And I think that it would be valuable for Jamaica, Maria, Cordell, broadcasters, to have conversations with those that have been through this before and understand how were the consumers educated? What was the role of the government in the switchover? How were they able to make it go forward faster? Having conversations with your brothers and sisters in Korea will be very important. They've been through 2 switchovers, and unlike the US, their switch to ATSC 3.0 is like yours, it's mandated with extra spectrum. How are they doing it? They set their sights, they're going to turn off ATSC 1.0 in 2027. So they set a 10-year timeline. Why? We need to talk to our Korean friends and find out what they did, why they did it, and what their milestones were. And can we contract that in Jamaica? And what do we need to do? But I think that what's also interesting about this particular situation is that I listened to Cordell last night about Jamaica sort of having a larger than life, reputation around the world, all the contributions culturally, and to think about Jamaica in a leadership position in a technical sense will be very special. I mean, Jamaica has the ability to be the first nation to be 100% switched over to a second-generation television system. The other thing that I think is interesting about Jamaica is that if we are able to solve these challenges of the people understanding what is this digital thing, what is data casting, where do I put my antenna? By the way, as you're not alone, I got a phone call too from a guy in Florida. I bought my new TV, I know it's lit up. I have 3.0, it won't tune anything. And I said, really? He goes, what have you done? Have you got an antenna? Well, yes, I've got an antenna. Well, so you plug the antenna in, right? Well, you still need an antenna? Yes, you have to plug your antenna into the television. Oh, okay, now it works. So not alone in this respect, but my point is that if all these issues can be solved, and Jamaica could be one of the first, if not the first country to have 100% coverage of remote education of all the people. It is possible that Jamaica can be that country. 100% coverage of emergency messaging using next generation digital systems. That's possible. So I personally, I'm sobered and inspired at the same time. And I think that those 2 things go hand in hand with the hard work that's ahead, the world around you, which is here to support, and the challenges that you will face, and I know that you will solve. Because as Claire pointed out, it is the path forward. It's been chosen, it's the right path, and it's just a question of how do we get from point A to point B. And as Chris pointed out, the devil is in the details. It's not going to happen by magic. So I want to say thank you for being here. 4 days of intense work. So thank you very much to Maria and the Spectrum Management Authority, and to Cordell and the Broadcasting Commission Jamaica for co-producing this event with ATSC. I'd also like to thank the event planning team, Amy Lotus, Carmen Patterson, Simone from the Ocean Coral Springs. Wonderful, wonderful job making this all such a great experience for everybody. I'd also like to thank our sponsors, without whom we couldn't make this possible. In particular, Guyan Solutions, who is our flagship sponsor. I'd also like to thank our exhibitors who are here to show you what's possible, what's available out there today, and to honestly help you with what you're doing next. So thank you to all of our exhibitors for bringing this technology into this room today. And I'd like to thank our speakers, people who came from all over the world to bring their knowledge to you, to help make this as rich an experience as possible. And in particular, I'd also like to thank Gary Scrignoli, who spent a day and a half giving you what we call the fire hose treatment. Open wide, here it comes. But most of all, I'd like to thank all of the attendees who are here today, yesterday, the day before, and Monday, maybe taking notes, I don't know, but in any ways, the attendees who have given of their time and their resources to be here with us. So welcome to the ATSC community. We love that you're here. We love all of you, and we cannot wait to work through this journey with you. And with that, I would like to call up Ashwini, and then followed by Amy, who will give us whatever fun thing is going to happen next, right? So thank you all. Thank you to our panelists. And now I'll turn it over to Ashwini. Thank you.
It is very difficult to talk before lunch because everybody's waiting. But hello, everybody, and thank you so much for being here. I've had a wonderful conference, and it is so good to see the spirit of Jamaica. It is so heartening. So I'll try to keep this short. I know Amy told me I have 5 minutes, and I'll try to keep it under that. So more than 50 years ago, the first digital transmission ever took place on this planet. The computer-to-computer transmission that took place on something called ARPANET. It was a precursor to the internet. This communication was between two professors or researchers in California, was meant to be a single word called login. But the computer crashed after typing the word O. So the first ever digital transmission became low. That was 50 years ago. And they could transmit two words, L-O. And in just 50 years, 85% of the world's population, that's about 6.7 billion, of all of us are connected digitally. And we know how rapidly this technology took place, how rapidly it has advanced. And just imagine where we will be in 10 years. And ATSC3 is joining this communication network space, and at such an exciting moment. This year alone, in worldwide, forgive me, I'm a girl of numbers. This year alone, worldwide, we have 22 billion app downloads. Each app downloaded resulted in about $1.7 of revenue. But the statistic that really blows my mind is by 2023, in 1 year, the total number of apps in the world is going to be 500 million. And that's like 500 million apps. And that should tell us the diversity, the reach, and the scale of how apps are taking over how we live. So at this important time, ATSC3 is joining the party. So we are all joining the party. The industry, the academia, the government, the policymakers, the research organizations, all of us must come together to make this happen. And like everybody is saying, we cannot wait. And we at Gaian are very proud to be a part of this journey with all of you. If we work together, tremendous value can be achieved. It can be created in the economy, and in the process, we enrich our lives and our citizens. And so let's make it happen. Let's work together. And I want to really thank Madeline for leading this party. Without her, most of this would not have been possible. She brings consensus. And many leaders like Mr. Green, Ms. Maria, you have been amazing in bringing people together. So thank you, everybody, for making this happen. And next year, when we meet again, I hope we'll have many successes to share, and we will have a success party. And in conclusion, I'm an amateur, but I've written a small poem for this event or for Jamaica in general, after being inspired by talking to people like Mr. Green about Jamaica. I hope you like it. No, it's not about taxes. I think I've made my point there. All right. The activities of leaders of the world today, sitting in Jamaica, I know. Broadcast media worked for me to make the information flow. Guided or unguided transmission, I say through wire or the air. Transmitted so much vast and fast, detailed facts are flared. Progress of this next-gen TV, how has changed the life? Developed by the brightest minds, brilliant and most keen. Adopted by the pioneers like Jamaica, whose courage and brilliance at its best is known but yet to be seen. But time has come to show the world. We have come a long way. Don't stop anymore, the island of songs. Greatness abounds in you. Native expressions draws life's demand. Greatest of minds spring from your land. Beautiful Jamaica, where champions like Bolt are born, with resilience and power to weather any storm. Every member, every race, gives grace to this place. Be in the news and be the news. You are the changing light. You are the changing light. Be the beacon, be united, and be the one, be the beacon. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Ashwini, thank you so much. That was beautiful. I do again want to echo our sentiments on behalf of ATSC. Thank you to you and Chandra and Gayan for just being incredible supporters of ATSC, not only here, but everything we do. You guys are right there with us. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. I have spent the last 4 days telling you all that when you see me, something is fun is about ready to happen. I promise that is the case, but I am gonna take just a couple of minutes to share my own thanks. As you know, I am the director of communications and I dabble in marketing and have for my entire career. We would be so remiss in not saying just a big thank you first to Mellow TV for the live stream and the live broadcasting. This was just thank you for your support in this endeavor and getting the word out to those that could not join us here in person. So thank you, Mellow TV. We have also had various media come throughout the last few days, and there has been numerous articles. I'm sure if you have your Google alerts set or you've been checking your social medias, there has been a lot of coverage about our event. And while I do understand that perhaps that may not filter down into the consumers in Jamaica, at least in your broadcasting ecosystem and those that have vested interest in what has happened here over the last 4 days, we got the word out. We are here. It is happening. We are collaborating and we are working together. ATSC will be here for you, not only this week, but in the weeks, months, and years to come. Let's see, who else do I want to thank? I again want to thank Cordell and Maria and your team for just the gracious guidance. I love the Caribbean. I love being here, but you all helped guide me in how we make this event successful. The other, and she, I don't know if she's can hear me. I think she's watching me out in the reception desk, but Carmen Patterson, if you don't know her, she helped register you. She's from Kingston. She's a PR professional and event manager, and this truly could not have happened without Carmen either. So when you see her as you leave, just shake her hand because I could not have done this without her either. I want to thank Madeline for her support. I have only been here with ATSC for a year. I have only been in broadcasting for a year, and I am too just thrilled to be a part of what is happening here in Jamaica. Thank you to our sponsors. Thank you to our exhibitors. Without you, ATSC could do none of this. And then lastly, I too am sobered and inspired by all that I have seen here over the last 4 days. And that's mostly because I have not had a mango daiquiri with a rum floater yet. So, so the day is yet young. We will change sober and inspired to tipsy and inspired. Because as of 1 o'clock today, I am on vacation for the next 3 days in this gorgeous island with you beautiful people. I will come back anytime you need me. Do you need me to haul set-top boxes? I'm here. I know my husband would love that too. And lastly, because I hope it is not the last time that I get to come to your beautiful island and see all of you again, I'm just simply going to say, in a tomorrow's. Thank you for being here. Oh my goodness, for goodness sakes. I did forget the best part. So we are going to have lunch served to all of us. Just like a couple days ago, I'm going to ask you, let's take a break, check email. If we can all move out to the piano bar, I will make sure to get us back in. They're going to set our tables again and get us ready for lunch. And it would not be an ending celebration. There will be sparkling adult beverages served.